alive, welcome to my video. This is going to be my spoiler-free review of the 2022 video game Overloop. So, following some deeply unethical actions by the CEO of a private corporation, you know, it's a real mess. A totalitarian government emerges and am I just describing Trump's second term? No, wait, fair enough. It refers to the game as well. In the game, it is about cloning. And, yeah, you play as someone who perhaps played a part, and it is up to you to help fix, this situation. And yeah, I'm gonna try not to make this just 100% love fest. This is the, of all the games I've played recently, this is definitely my favorite. So I'm gonna try to also say some, it's not an absolutely perfect game. But yeah, right, as per usual, I would recommend you get it on sale. I always pretty much always say that for anything you can, any movie, TV show, video game, anyway. But yeah, really loved it, and the game is rated M for mature, so will this video be. Did I already mention no spoilers? Anyway, yeah. I think I'll just briefly describe. So the basic idea, it's this 2D, wonderfully retro graphics thing, which is, of course, in part a way to, not have to, this would have been much more costly in money and time to develop if it had to be, like, 3D, perhaps even, like third person or first person, yeah. And it also helps, it changes how you perceive the plentiful, honestly at times near constant, brutal, gory violence. Basically you are running around, you have a gun that can, break certain objects and hurt enemies. I forget, it might actually also be able to hurt your own clones as well. The gun does also allow you to clone. At first it's just one. I think the maximum is a total of 3, so there's 4 of you running around. And you have complete control over them. They don't act without you controlling them. And yeah, there's some jumping. There are environmental hazards to avoid and or disable. There are switches to flip. There are buttons that you have to stand on, and that's of course where cloning comes in. Sometimes, someone has to be standing on the button whilst someone else moves further. So you clone yourself, put someone on the button. It's very much a pick up and play kind of game. You will very quickly understand how to use it. There's very few, it's minimalist in a number of ways. The controls are very straightforward. It really just is, shoot, clone, switch which clone you are controlling, jump, and then the directional, and and use. And I've seen some say that they found it frustrating that the puzzles don't get quite as complex as other games. I can appreciate that, and I definitely do. This is why I'm saying it. I think it's good to know before you start playing. Certainly before you spend any money on it. Obviously, this is not going to challenge you as much as quite a few other puzzle games will. I really don't think it's meant to. I don't think they set out to do that and fail. a lot of the puzzles you will pretty quickly be able to figure out. Near the end, some of them do get fairly complex, but I really don't think it's supposed to be something. You can complete this at, let's see, I think it took me just under 2 hours. Now, on account of my carpal tunnel, I couldn't do it in a single sitting. A lot of people will do it in a single sitting, and because of that, the fact that, puzzles are fairly straightforward and it's fairly short matters a lot, because it's in part about how you feel about what's going on and how that might change over the course of playing. And it has the right length for that. It's not so short that you don't get to that point, but it's also not so long that you get way past that point and are just like, okay, now what? It is in some ways very similar to Portal, both 1 and 2. Two games that I will review. Let me know. Drop me a comment down below if you'd like me to do them really, really soon. Right now, it might be a little while, but I'm very happy to do them soon. Absolutely love those two games. Those games definitely get more complex, and in a way, it's not really fair to, because of course, teleportation versus cloning. I don't know. I suppose it is possible. I think I saw at least one reviewer say there's other puzzle games where cloning is used more, for more complex puzzles. But yeah, both of them, yeah, it was especially at the very start of this, because the tutorial is technically part of the story rather than separate, the way that a number of games, I guess by today, most games probably do. I don't play enough games to know, but I remember back when it was, Half-Life, the tutorial was just separate, but yeah, it's in both this and the Portal games, the tutorial is part of the story and helps introduce you to the world, not quote-unquote just the game mechanics. And yeah, you're running around in a bunch of rooms. There are things you have to do in order to proceed. There's this science thing going on. It brings up ethical questions. Yeah, already mentioned environmental hazards and such. And yeah, with both, you also have this thing of, there is this kind of dark, morbid sense of humor, but there is also heart in there. Really, really glad that we've gotten to a point where a lot of media has that. I remember when there was a lot less, yeah, where you kind of got one or the other. I think that does more or less get us to, so, yeah, early on, I thought that the entire game would basically be you moving through facilities, but there are open areas. You are outside at times as well. And that actually really works as this, when you're inside a lot in a video game, you can feel trapped. It can get claustrophobic, and that is part of the idea here. But when you're outside, yeah, it can feel a little more open and freeing. And once you are, see, I'm trying to keep this spoiler free. Yeah, no, I can further say that you realize that it's not really free. It is a world, this game, with very, very little freedom. And let's see, yeah, I think that does bring us to the commentary. So I really loved how this comments on various related things. You have this thing of this unethical use of science that could hypothetically, it could really help the world, and instead it has a really negative effect. It is very much about how important it is to apply ethics when doing science. And that's, something, thankfully we are more aware of that today, but there was indeed a while where, science kind of did just focus on what could be done and not what should be done. And I'm not going to do another impersonation of Jeff Goldblum, I swear. But the cloning led to all these really negative things. It led to the rise of this, totalitarian government, and then there were these responses. There is this church that is basically trying to give people hope after they lost hope on account of what the cloning caused. And I don't want to give anything away. I will just say, like, from right away, we do get a sense, is this church really 100% trying to help people, or is it more exploitation? Because the cloning did, of course, lead to a lot of exploitation, and I really thought they did a fantastic job creating this allegory where you can slot in various minorities, because some of the things said fit different ones. One, fairly early in this, you encounter someone who says that his clone, had sex with his wife and stole his job. And that's the kind of thing that a lot of people have said about, immigrants and black people. You also have the way that they are just exploited labor. They're basically just not seen as full human beings, as individuals, as beings who are an end to themselves, just a means to an end, which really fits the entire, everyone who isn't rich in a capitalist society. And let's see, I think that might be about as much as I can say without spoiling anything. The various ways that people try to handle the situation, and you also, over the course of the game, see how someone in particular is responding to it, or has responded to it. And I think that... Oh, right. Briefly about the gameplay. There are some enemies, some of which can also shoot. Some of them will run at you, and if they get too close, they can do damage. And, something I thought worked quite well in this is... And this is not a spoiler, you realize this very early on, there are places in this game that are impassable if you refuse to clone. And essentially, the game is asking if you are willing to sacrifice a clone in order to accomplish something. And that's something that, it very much wants you to question. And again, that is something that you might change how you feel about it over the course of the game. And one example, there's this thing of, there are very frequent autosaves. Basically, as soon as you've cleared a room, an area, as far as I can tell, it autosaves every single time you get into another room. The only person who can go through a door from one room to the next is what is referred to as the original. The one you start out playing as before you start cloning yourself. And you visibly can see, sometimes, if they're within your view, the clones cease to exist when you walk through that door. They're not just, like, standing there still, And you might find yourself at some point in this thinking there might be dangers up ahead. if the original dies, I have to do this entire room over. Some of the rooms get, not like long, but long enough that you really don't want to have to do, it won't be very many minutes you'll have to redo. But, if you're a gamer, you might want to try to get through it as fast as you can. And, might cross your mind, if I sent a clone, if the clone dies, then I'll know where the danger is, and then I can proceed. Maybe send another clone, get a little further until I'm entirely sure what I have to do in order to clear the room as the original. And then you might think, why am I placing the life of the original over the lives of the clones? And if you catch yourself thinking, well, they're disposable, but the original isn't, bingo. That is something that the game is trying to underline, because under capitalism and other, exploitative systems as well, the military is also, some are just seen as more equal than others, and I really thought this used gameplay mechanics incredibly well. This would not work anywhere near as well as a short film. You'd have an actor being like, oh, what have I done? But instead, you find yourself thinking, or perhaps you play all the way through it without thinking about it. That is, of course, possible. I do think that a significant percentage of people who play this, if they're really engaging with the world, you will find yourself thinking these things. And yeah, there's some great satire over what I've already mentioned, and also just some great, meta stuff. Amongst the, let's see, 21 achievements, one of which is for, I won't say exactly how many, but once you've cloned yourself a certain number of times, you get an achievement for that, which, in case you miss, and that's also, every time you clone someone, the number of the, it'll either say 1 for original, or the the copy number, or it'll say a number indicating you've cloned, that many, or one less than that, one, anyway, and that also happens when you switch between them, And I do want to stress, that wasn't necessary, because the clones do look different from you. The original is in this blue, hold on, I'm sure I can find an image. Yeah, the original is in a blue shirt, suit, something like that. The copies are all in white. So it was not, at least not purely, based on, we gotta make sure people can keep track of, because, like I mentioned, only the original can clear areas. And yeah, it reminds you, wow, you've cloned yourself a lot of times. You haven't forgotten that every clone dies, have you? Because, the game takes great care to ensure that if you try to go through a door,
at Infinity
it'll
Labs,
say,
we've been
what
striving to create a better...
I didn't think it was going to do that. I thought I turned off autoplay. What the? Sorry about that. Gonna have to deal with that later. Yeah. Yes. So the if you try to go through a door, it'll say only originals can pass through doors. And, if the clone is standing right next to the door, when you go through it, you will see them disintegrate, And it makes you think about how you're treating these clones, and the fact that they don't complain, they don't argue, but you are the one controlling them, so is it just because they are sort of you? Is part of you dying? You know, there's... Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. I mean, I did already make an Orwell reference, but yeah, this is inspired in part by 1984. Some have said it's similar to Black Mirror. I haven't watched any of that show. I wouldn't mind. I just haven't. Right, and some have compared it to Inside, which I have not played. Let's see, is that the one I have? I will play and review Inside, yes. And yeah, Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey was also, you know, I've played the demo of that, and that's, yeah. Let's see, I think that is about what I really wanted to make sure to say. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, one of the meta elements and one of the achievements you can get in this is specifically whether or not you are willing to sit through something that is purposefully, like, it feels like it's slowing you down. If you do that, or if you know, choose to try to find another solution, which, yeah, I thought that was absolutely delicious. Right, you know, there is one, like, collectible thing, crystals, I think they're called, you know. If you manage to, you know, if you don't get all of them, you know, you can replay any of the levels or chapters, you know, without having to play your way to that part. And in the level select screen, you can see exactly where, you know, yeah, what levels you didn't get all the crystals, and exactly how many of them you are missing. So, yeah, very nicely done on that. Yeah, it's a game that's never unfair, especially if you are willing to use clones to scout ahead and such. Yeah, controls are responsive. You know, any time that I screwed something up, it was my own fault. It wasn't because the game failed to, yeah. Let's see, yeah, the music always fits the atmosphere. The shooting is about the right frequency. There's not so much of it that it gets old, which it easily could, because, you know, you only have the one gun, there's not that many types of enemies, and it is fairly straightforward. You point and shoot, you know, you jump over the enemies, you know, blasts, it's stuff like that, you know. A lot of the time you are dealing with environmental hazards, and they did a really solid job thinking up a bunch of different ones. You know, lasers, beams, you can get smushed, you can get blown up, you know, all, yeah, lots of different kinds of, yeah, and I thought there were enough of those, and the areas and puzzles were just varied enough that they managed to, yeah. There was this one thing, they give you something that enables you to solve certain puzzles, and you don't have it for as long as I had maybe guessed you would. And I understand other people were quite frustrated with it and really felt like it was, they felt cheated when it was taken away. You know, every so often the game takes away your toys, so you have to walk through an area without, you know, getting to do anything, and just, like, see how bad things have gotten for people in numerous various ways. I don't think that overall there was too little of that particular thing. that the one that they don't let you use for all that long. I think it just feels like it because it's so fun to use, and there were some really great puzzles with it. I didn't really mind overall. Like, obviously the moment that it was taken away, I was like, oh, I want to keep using that, but I can appreciate, I think it's one of those things where it felt like we got to use it for less because time flew by as we were using it, but it doesn't feel like they just ran out of puzzle ideas for that particular element, or some other, or that maybe they just only realized very late in development, oh hey, we could kind of do that, let's just throw a couple of puzzles and levels together. I don't think that was the case at all. And yeah, there were certain things about this where something started out looking one way and later, is revealed it was actually another way that I thought were handled quite well. The ending is pitch perfect. I did not see it coming, but in retrospect, there is no other proper way to end this particular game. And I really hope they don't try to force a sequel or some other kind of, because this is just, it's such a perfect little self-contained thing. Like, spiritual successor, sure, I'd play other, yeah, puzzle games by the same developer, with other sci-fi ideas, or without sci-fi ideas for that matter, as long as they feel they have something to communicate and fun puzzles to deliver. Yeah. I think that does cover everything. Right, recently I've been talking about, could this be the first game you play? Overall, I don't think this should be the very first game you play unless you have enough patience. Because there's, hypothetically, it might take you much longer than the 2 hours or so. But, yeah, it's there was this excellent video by Laura Crone. She might have even said it in more than one video, where she pointed out that, no, Portal 1 is actually not that great a place to start if you've never played a video game before, because there's too many things to keep track of. It's just not quite as intense as, like, a first-person shooter, sure, but, yeah, hypothetically, there's enough save points, and ultimately, as soon as you get the hang of it quite quickly, and then it is just, figuring out exactly what to do and then doing it. Hypothetically, it could be, but you might experience a lot of frustration if it is. You should probably choose something with slightly less, slightly less intense. But, yeah, that covers it entirely. Yeah, fantastic game. So glad that I was able to play it. Yeah, 8 sacrificed clones out of 10. And, yeah, here's hoping that at least the cloning part of this never happens in the real world. Because, as mentioned at the start of this video, yeah, tech CEO ruining everything for everyone. At least in this game, it seemed like they were actually starting out with, like, altruism. They just didn't think it through, which I don't know that I would go that far when talking about Elon Musk.